The emulation is so good inside the Prophet-6 that if you put it on a spring reverb and you hit the side, actually makes it sound a bit more realistic with real tape and a Prophet-6. Hey and welcome back to the channel. I'm Clyde and today we're going to be taking a look at the Prophet-6. We'll be using it in a demo song, creating a patch from scratch to fit into that demo song, and bouncing it to some new tapes thanks to Splicit in the US. I'll also give you my opinion at the end of the video for who I think this is for and what other options you have for a studio polysynth. Timestamps are in the description. Shout out to Matt Johnson from Jamiroquai and J3PO who both have some really amazing patches for this synth. They both show you how to use it in a studio setting and really give you the details that you want to know, with some killer playing on top too, so go check them out. I just got the Focusrite Octopre. It's hooked up to the Apollo Twin via ADAT, which is giving me 10 channels simultaneously to record with UAD effects on every channel. Video on that coming soon, and if there's anything you guys want to know specifically about that setup, let me know. Apologies for the handheld camera angle, but I don't have a boom arm yet, so here it is, the Prophet-6. Come on, how beautiful are these things really? The build quality and the wood trim all around is just stunning. Mine still has some of the original plastic on it. It's peeling up on the Prophet-6 logo, but these are definitely amazing instruments to buy used, especially with the Dave Smith warranty. Out of warranty repairs are $25. No matter what the part is, they'll ship it right to your door. And they have some of the best customer service, like they literally respond to emails within 20 minutes. The demo song that we're doing today starts with a patch that I made right here. Alright, so let's see what we've got so far. I've got some MIDI on the Prophet-6 that I played in and then edited afterwards, and it sounds like this. And then I've got the Moog playing a bass line that's really similar to the Prophet-6 line, but an octave below, and I haven't really settled on the patch yet, but this is what it sounds like. And together. We can initialize the preset on the Prophet-6 and then go ahead and start to make a patch from scratch. Just testing that the audio is coming in, and it is. Alright, so let's make a patch. We're initialized at the moment, and I'm going to put the other Prophet part on a loop at some points just so I can hear how the two sounds blend together. But I know we've already got somewhat of a pad / keys patch in here, so I figured maybe we can go with a bright brassy sound. And the great part about brass sounds is they're really simple to make. You can make them as complex as you want, but most of the time they're just a saw wave with a tweaked filter and tweaked amp envelope. And I can show you that by turning down the cutoff. And then messing with the filter envelope a little bit. So we'll add a little bit of attack, put decay up kind of high, and then sustain down a little bit low. And turn up the envelope amount. Now you can hear there's kind of a wave into the sound. That's the slow attack, and then it'll slowly decay into the lower sustain that we have, and that is controlling the low pass filter. So I know I would want a shorter decay, just hearing that. Maybe even a shorter attack. Bringing the sustain down. And now I'm going to mess with the amp envelope. You don't want to turn the sustain down too much on the amp envelope because then the sound will kind of just disappear. So that's way too bright for me. Add a little more attack on the filter, a little more decay again. Maybe add some resonance, just a tiny bit. Does sound like we're getting into the brass area now. I'm gonna go ahead and turn on velocity and the keyboard tracking to half. We're still a little slow on the attack. So I'm gonna go and put those back down. Put the sustain up a little bit on the filter. And yes, we need some release because it's going away way too fast. You want to make sure that the filter envelope has more release than the amplifier envelope. Okay, so now we've got a basic brass patch. And we're gonna go ahead and add some LFO to this. A really cool trick that I learned from the Sequential YouTube page is going to a random wave on your LFO and turning up the frequency as fast as it'll go. This will create a white noise modulation, which is different than just turning up the noise. So I'm going to turn down the initial amount. So this is just adding noise to the patch. You can blend it in fairly subtly, but it always sounds like noise on top of the oscillator. If you want it to sound sort of lo-fi with noise in the oscillator almost, then you go to a random wave and turn the frequency up as high as it'll go, modulate the frequency, so the pitch of the oscillator. So I'll click frequency 1, and then we'll start blending it in. And what this is doing is actually randomly modulating the pitch of oscillator 1 super fast. So it's like, it acts like a white noise generator, but it'll be blended in with oscillator 1, and it gives it kind of a lo-fi vinyl sound. If you turn it up a ton, then it will mess with the pitch a little bit. So you just want to blend it in just so you can hear the noise a little bit. It works really well on brass patches because a real brass instrument uses your breath, and your breath isn't always perfectly stable all the time. So you'll hear those kind of flutters in a saxophone or a trumpet when they're playing. So when you have a brass synth patch and you use this noise modulation, it kind of gives some more realism to the sound. So I'm going to turn the envelope amount down because I don't want the cutoff going up so much, but I will add a high pass as well. Because I want it to blend in with the other patch that I have. So now I'm going to put the other patch on a loop and just kind of see how they sound together. And we're first, just going to tweak a little bit more. I'm going to set oscillator 2 to an LFO, and then that way I can modulate the frequency of oscillator 1. So now we've got a nice vibrato. I'm going to try the keyboard tracking, which gives a different pitch for every key, so it'll modulate at a different speed. I don't always love this sound, but we'll try it. In this case, a really subtle amount actually adds some more separation between the notes, so I really like it. And the next thing we do is maybe add some reverb. So I'm going to go over to Effect B, add a spring. Really cool thing, if you didn't know, the emulation is so good inside the Prophet-6 that if you put it on a spring reverb and you hit the side, it actually acts like a spring. Like if you hit your old guitar amp or something with a real spring reverb in there, you'd hear the spring kind of rattling around. So on these effects, I really keep a low blend. Like I barely want to hear it. Turn the time down and the early reflections down. Just adds a tiny bit of space. And I'm also going to try some bucket brigade delay. And crank the mix down. That works for me, and there's a really cool Prophet brass patch using just a simple one oscillator saw wave using some polymod, a really cool noise LFO trick, and modulating the filter. So now we're going to take our new brass patch and we're going to add it to what we've already got. So I'm pretty much just going to follow the chords that we've already got, but I'm going to add some stabs and some pitch bends along with it. So now we're going to record a take and then edit the MIDI so I can get it sitting in nice with the mix. Alright, so this is the part I came up with right here, and it sounds like this. This little modulation peak that you see here is the white noise modulation that I was talking about. So if I zoom in a little bit and exaggerate this, you should hear the white noise come in a lot more exaggerated. So adding this little bit of modulation actually makes it sound a bit more realistic, like a real brass player with the fluttering breath that I was talking about before. So now we'll give this a quick little mix, record this down to audio, and I'll check back in. Okay, so we're back. It's day 2. Not so funny story. I was called into work last night, and I live in Canada, so it's winter time here. And I was walking out to the car and took a a pretty big spill on the ice, bounced my head off the ground, and ended up staying home, just lying in bed working on this demo song. And I got it moved pretty far along, so I ended up using Serum to program a really similar patch to what I had on the Prophet. So now I'm going to take that MIDI, put it through the Prophet, and bounce it down to audio. Then we'll fit everything else in, make sure the balance is good, and bounce it to tape. Okay, so we're about to take this chorus part that I wrote last night and record it to audio. And I'll continue to do this with the other parts as well. That one came in a bit hot. We're just going to turn the levels down. I also want to make it a little bit wider in the chorus, so it'll probably stick out a little bit more the wider I push it. For any of you guys who don't know, this Spread Light plugin by Yum Audio is amazing. Very similar to Wider from Polyverse, but I really like how this sounds, and it also gives you a Haas effect option, which is slightly delaying one side of the signal. This is my go-to for widening now. Turning on the Moog. I was using the Contact Rickenbacker bass, which is such a great plugin, it always sounds good, but I'm going to try and record a quick bass line with the same notes that I had in on the plugin. So we'll see if we can get a good take and a good sound without taking too much time. I forgot to even tune it. We're back. The project is finished, and the video is already pretty long, so I'm not going to go into every detail, but if you want a mix breakdown, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to go through it. I'm just going to walk you through a few things that I added to the session, and then we'll go ahead and bounce it to tape. Okay, so the first addition was the drums. It was a drum loop that I made myself a couple months ago for a jazz hop song, but then I went and chopped it all up, kind of redesigned it for this song. The chorus goes a bit more in its own direction. I'll play a little segment for you now. It doesn't make much sense on its own, really. With the rest of the song, the relationship between the drums and the instrumental is pretty nice, so. I'm still not in love with my bass recordings. I spent quite a while back and forth whenever I had time trying to tweak it, but it's good enough for now, and I might just have to look into getting something a little better than a Squier for bass recording. So the song starts with the initial Prophet keys patch that I made, and then we have the Moog bass come in, and the patch from scratch that we built. I also used Vital, which is a soft synth, for like a square wave lead that's kind of sliding in and out of notes over top of the chords for like a interesting lead line. And because it's an instrumental, instead of repeating that again in the second verse, I actually went with like a funky bass line instead over top. So here's what that sounds like. The chords do remain the same in the second verse as the first verse, and same with the high brass patch that we made, but there is a ton of automation going on throughout this to keep it exciting. As you can see, there's quite a few separate automation lanes on almost every part in the instrumental. Even the drums are being automated in volume up and down. We have delay throws and pitch shifting delays, we have reverb throws, we have sample delay giving like a Haas effect back and forth. We also have high cuts and different EQ automation throughout the whole song. One of the cool delay throws that I put in this song is actually right here. It's going into a Valhalla pitch shifted delay, and it throws to that delay throughout the song whenever there's a dropout or an important transition in the mix. And we play a chord in this song going up to the chorus that's actually not in the key. We're borrowing the fifth from the neighboring key. So it adds a little bit more emotion to the transition that way. You can hear that third chord doesn't sound like it belongs, but because it's only one key away and actually only one note difference on the circle of fifths, it still fits in but adds tension right before the build-up. The structure of the song is one verse, one chorus, and then a second verse. I didn't want to do a second chorus or keep repeating too much, especially because there's no vocals, and it's just a demo for the Prophet-6, which I think we showed off pretty well here. The last transition before the song is over is just another dropout with a pitch shifted delay throw, and then it goes into a long sustained note with that delay kind of fading out, and we also have a little help from the bass to keep it down. So. Okay, so now we take a trip over to the dusty tape corner. Gotta keep it dusty for the extra lo-fi, right? And we'll pick out a tape. I think 914, I haven't used it yet. It's a 1.5mm mastering tape, 1/4 inch. We'll open it up, get it on the tape machine, and bounce it to tape. Alright, so here's the tape setup in the DAW. I have a tape send with a test oscillator on it that sends a 1000 Hz sine wave at whatever level I choose to the tape machine, and then I can set my input levels that way. Then I'll match the level of the audio with the test oscillator. So this is set to -12, and the audio set to -12. So now when we record, the level should be going into the tape machine correctly. On the Apollo, it's fairly simple. We have a tape send, which is the virtual output, and it's sending out 3 and 4. And then we have tape inputs 1 and 2, left and right, coming into the DAW, which are selected in Logic here. 15, 16, tape left and right. And I like to record tape back into the DAW with the Pultex on, just giving a super tiny little boost to bring that 1/4 inch tape to life. I'm gonna turn the main camera off so that you guys can see the tape while it's recording. Bouncing to tape, take 2, here we go. So I actually seem to be having a small issue with the tape machine today. No problems with live recording back to the DAW, but when I go to play back from the tape machine, it's actually slower. But with this problem, it gave me the idea to turn it down halftime and record that into the DAW. It'll sound just like the Lofi splice tape samples that you hear all the time, but with real tape and a Prophet-6. Well, that was really fun. What an amazing synth. We hit a few bumps in the road with filming and some small tape issues, but I had a blast and I think the project turned out pretty well. Now it's time for my opinion. Who do I think this is for and what other options do you have? The Prophet-6 is a synth with a brilliant sound. The oscillators do sound a little unique, and it took me some time to get used to them, but once you do, you'll love it and you'll just be banging out patch after patch of usable studio sounds. As someone who learned to produce on a laptop, I do find myself stuck sometimes, wanting a little bit more flexibility. And it's not the easiest synth to find the sweet spots because the knobs are really sensitive and they're pretty small. But overall, the sound is the most important thing. And it sure sounds like a Prophet, really earning its name and then some. So the quick answer is, if you want a simple synth in the modern sense of the word, with vintage roots and a classic sound that can hold its own today, with modern features like MIDI and USB, then the Prophet-6 is for you. If you want a super flexible modern analog synth, then it could be worth checking out the Prophet Rev 2. Personally, I still might end up with the Rev 2 instead, just because it has more flexibility, more voices, and it's a little lighter on your wallet. Either way, you can't go wrong when you're buying from Sequential. With their amazing warranty that I mentioned earlier and their customer service, I'm proud to have a Sequential synth in my studio. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's any specific videos you guys want to see, let me know in the comments. I'll be aiming to get to the point where I can do weekly uploads. It just might not be a full production with live recording and mixing and bouncing to tape all within a 30-minute episode every week. But if it ever gets to the point where I can do this full time, then you can count on it. Anyways, you've heard enough of me talking, so thanks again. I'm Clyde, and remember, keep making music if you love to do it.